Yes.
Hello, welcome everybody. Let's call the public session to order, and I would like to begin with the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You're going to go into the superintendent report.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming, especially considering, well, the time it's might not be too cold, but it is kind of cold weather out there. So I'd like to begin by thanking our buildings and grounds. Over the last 2 weeks, we did have to pour 2 days for a 2-hour delay. We know that can be somewhat inconvenient for parents, but we did have quite a bit of snow into the evening that caused some major issues the next day in terms of the morning. But I really want to thank our buildings and grounds crew, Enrique, Billy, Michael, all the custodians for the work that they did on those particular mornings. They come in at about 5 o'clock in the morning to clear the roads and to clear the streets and to clear the sidewalks to make sure that we are ready to receive kids and adults at that particular time, the 2-hour delay. So thank you for the work that they've done. And of course, the security that's out there as well. I see one of our security officers in the back. So thank you all for everything that you've done. We are going to now move into the second budget workshop, which really looks at expenditures. And that presentation is going to be delivered by our very own Ms. Love.
So good evening. Quick presentation. We're still in the beginning phases of budget development. In the next few weeks, we start to get really into the largest portion of the budget, which is our instructional budget. So today we did receive a state aid update. Sean, could you flip the slides? Thank you. We got a state aid update after our last budget hearing that we did. We're going to go quick through the transportation budget proposal for next year, what our projected benefit costs are for next year, our buildings and grounds budget, and then discuss the capital project proposals that we're looking at for next year. So state aid, you may have seen in the paper, the state aid runs our public information. You go on the state education website, you can find them in numerous locations. But the information that's provided sometimes is a little bit deceiving. So foundation aid, based on the study that the Rockefeller Institute has done, the governor took various portions and recommendations. So they're replacing free reduced lunch numbers with poverty count. They're also replacing the old census data with what's called SAPE. It's an annual update of census for the most part. And the funny thing was when they did that, those two kind of net. One brought the numbers down and one brought it up. So it kind of became a net impact on foundation aid formula. So they did, though, put a floor that nobody will receive less than 2% in foundation aid increase. We actually, most of Suffolk County received only the 2% increase in foundation aid, but it's 2% more than we thought we were getting because we were on safe harmless. We were afraid that was going to go away. They are protecting that. So you'll see there we have just about over a $300,000 increase in foundation aid. With regards to building aid, we are seeing an increase in that because we finished our energy performance contracts. That information was filed with the state. If you look at the state aid run, you won't see that number of $1,035,000. It's actually slightly less than the $989 for this year. And that being is the state is calculating our aid incorrectly. So when all the information was received, I did reconciliation analysis to find we were not getting that additional 10% of building aid on the energy performance contract once we filed that. So this is the first year we're getting that money. I have been working with Questar, state aid, BOCES, in correcting that. They're helping me work with facilities planning and with the state aid department to make sure we're reinstated this year and going forward that additional 10%, because we did have the voters approve us doing that project, which allows us to get that additional $45,000 a year. So that is in the works of being corrected. The other aids are expense-based aids, so how much we spend, we get a certain percent back each year. So right now they are showing slight declines. That's coming off of what our projected numbers were that were submitted back in November. I'm doing fund balance updates. So those numbers really are not solid until we submit our final audit reports up in September of next year. So we could see some variation in those areas. So that's it. So total foundation aid. The other piece I don't have on here is the UPK. So UPK money, while it shows up on your state aid runs, and it shows everybody's getting a significant amount of extra aid this year, primarily because of UPK. UPK is federal money. It doesn't come from the state, it comes from the federal government. It's a grant. It's not in the form of state aid. We are not guaranteed to get the full allotment of $700,000 plus. We have to actually educate children in order to receive the money. We only get the money for the amount of students we educate. We have, we don't even know what our true allotment will be until around end of August, early September, when the early education department sends us what they call an equity form that we fill out, how many kids we're educating. They then tell us how much per pupil we have to spend on the program. So we are always fully compensated for the students that we educate. It was always a $5,400 minimum maximum that was paid for per child, but with the additional aid that they have been putting on the program, we are paying more than that to both of our locations. They're both receiving the same amount per pupil, and we're actually able to support them with Chromebooks, smartboards, classroom supplies, learning materials, professional development. So the program has been growing as a result of the additional money we're getting, but just keep that in mind when you do look at those state aid runs. What you're seeing is not reality. So foundation aid, yeah, that's reality. The number that's there, it could change. Just yesterday, I was up at the Capitol for Advocacy Day and talking. We're not pushing really for any other change in foundation aid because we've gotten what we've asked for at this point. But it's more so we're focusing on some other items within the legislative negotiations that are going to start moving forward in the coming weeks. So we really don't anticipate too much money change in the state aid area going forward when the legislative budget comes out and the final budget is adopted. But just keep in mind that there may be some tweaks along the way, and as we get that information, we'll be sure to share it.
Yeah, so for the UPK, that covers, what are the hours that it covers, how many hours, morning, afternoon?
The full day program, so we operate 9:30 to 2:30.
Right?
9 to 2:30.
It's slightly different than each summer.
So it's, yeah, but it's a full day
In the past,
program.
that wasn't true, right? In the past, it had.
It was always a half day
day.
program,
So
correct.
I don't think the public wanted to know that, because I think that's a really great benefit for parents.
So it was 2 years ago, they did a UPK expansion grant,
Yeah,
which allowed for us to transition from that half day program to the full day
yeah,
program.
that's great.
Yes.
I also had a question, I ask this all the time, but wondering if we could ever change it. You know how you have children who are kind of on the cusp, and so parents have to decide whether they're gonna hold them back or not, if they're, you know, emotionally or academically ready for pre-K. But sometimes they can't afford to pay for that extra year, and that's the determining factor for pushing them through.
So
And
that's
as
through
a
the
result, we're
regulations.
seeing some of those learning gaps that may not occur if they would have had that paid for, so. How
That
I don't
is
know
through
why we
Office of Early
can't-
Education, that's in the regulations. We have no
Yeah.
say as to, like, we have to follow what there's, how it is. So there are like UPK pre-K, there are some 3-4 programs out there, but that are not grant funded, so we're not seeing any of that. So right now it is strictly based on age.
Because EC, early childhood education is so important.
Yeah.
Like the research shows that closing those gaps early on is only going to benefit our scores, even in high school.
Right. Yeah, but no, we have to unfortunately follow the regulation for that.
Jerry,
Yes.
on the federal money, the federal grants, given the change in Washington, is there any signals coming out? We should be concerned about that change.
So the conversation we just had the past 2 days I was in Albany are, you shouldn't not be concerned, but you don't have to be overwhelmingly concerned. Most guidance that we've been receiving, our title grants are not being touched, our section 611, 619, which serves our special education students, are not being touched. We have not seen any change in our operation. We just filed some forms to draw down some monies without issue. So we don't know what's forthcoming in the future. So the conversation is, don't panic, but pay attention and be aware. So for right now, and it was a question I asked, should I start, we do fund a lot of staff members through our grants, and our professional development is in our grants. Should we start trying to put that in our general fund budget now? And the answer was no, not yet. We don't need to do that right now. You don't need to panic. It's kind of be alert, be aware, but let's just see where it falls. So for next year, we would feel we're okay. But it's a continuous conversation we are having, yes. And anything changes, I'll be sure to share that out.
Great.
Sorry, as far as the UPK, is there a certain number of students that we are allotted?
Yeah, they give you a maximum count. We don't know the definitive number for next year. This year's number is 80 something. Right? We're in the 80s.
We're very undersubscribed.
Yeah, we haven't met that number, but yeah.
It is, but we currently have 61 in the book.
Okay. But if we wanted to have 8, we could have.
We can, yeah, so
Yeah.
we're not even accessing the full grant now, because we can only access a certain dollar amount, because we're only educating 61 students.
Okay.
It's almost like a self-sufficient program, where you get funding based on the amount of students that are enrolled in the program.
Okay.
So right now, we have
don't
61.
No, we're open to, we've had some kids come and go, we enrolled, some kids mid-year. We have until April, I believe it is, to file the amended grant if you have any other students enroll in the next 2 months,
Okay.
to finish out the year. But, our Office of Early Education, Dr. Meyer and I work closely with them throughout this process as she files that data. They then come to us and say, hey, your data is showing higher enrollment, you didn't file to get that additional money. And it's more that falls on me to do that,
Yeah.
but I don't want to file an amendment every single month. I know I have until April to touch the money, so we're okay in that.
But parents shouldn't be like alarmed that there's not going to be enough spots, and there'll be enough spots.
We have not, in my 6 years here,
Many
This
years.
is a 2012 year, right, the COVID baby, so we are seeing for the second year a slightly higher, we're already around, we're over 60 confirmed registrations at this point, so it's a little high, but.
But if we get like 100, we can request more funds.
It depends, so the number did go up, our grant allocation, as for what's on the state aid run, did increase, but we don't have what the pupil count is for that yet.
Okay.
So, and that's, we just put an RFP out for the UPK program for locations. It's supposed to be done every single year. So we're waiting also on responses for that. If maybe there's another location that is looking to help provide classes. That response is due in 2 weeks, I think. We're continuing to explore and try to grow the program. But at this point, no, nobody should shy away saying, I think my kid will get in. Please, it's open enrollment right now, come in.
They're encouraged to submit the paperwork as early as
And even this
possible.
year, if somebody at this point, felt the first 6 months their child wasn't ready, but is age eligible, they can still enroll in this year's program.
Okay.
It's still available.
Thank you.
So on the expense side of things, we're going to kind of flip. We did a lot of revenue last meeting. The transportation budget is pretty status quo, so we continue to contract with Montauk Bus. We're assuming a 4% increase, so this contract was up by CPI, but it's CPI as measured in May, of which we don't get that number until June 15th. So we have to take a guess when we're developing the budget of what CPI increase on the contract is going to be. We've been around 4% the past 2 years. 2 years ago, 6%. That year it was just over 4%. While CPI is still high, it is slowly leveling off, so we should be fine within the area of 4%. And we do keep an eye on the routes that we need for our students with special needs as students either move in, classifications change. We do put in some additional routes in there just to make sure we're covered for any changes in program for students. But as you can see, we have been seeing a significant increase in cost, mainly because that a couple years ago we had that significant CPI increase, and really just the needs for transportation. Plus, we're back out there running, all of our field trips are running, our athletic trips are running. We're during COVID and easing back into that normalcy of true transportation running, and buses are actually showing up, and they're showing up on time now. So we've kind of gotten over that bit of a hump there. So very simple portion of this budget, believe it or not. With regards to employee benefits, so this is pretty locked in at this point. The only thing that we'll start seeing changes as we're finalizing the staffing budgets for next year. But we do pay a portion of the teacher's retirement system for all of our instructional salaries. We pay 9.59% of all salaries of our instructional staff, which relates to just over $2 million in the budget. And then there's the employee retirement system, which is 16.5% of salaries, and that's for all our non-instructional, our buildings and grounds crew, clerical staff, monitors, aides. paraprofessionals, those all fall underneath the ERS system. Those rates are set by those systems. We don't adjust them. Those are now set for next year. So like I said, those would only modify based upon any movement with staff, any retirees, new incoming staff. We'll just tweak those as we finalize that. With regards to health insurance, so we have health insurance for a calendar year, so it's a January through December, but we function on a fiscal year, July through June. So we only know 6 months of premium in the next budget cycle. We have to guess what the next 6 months are going to be. In the past, we have seen significant increases in health insurance, which we anticipated. We knew it was going to be forthcoming. We were seeing barely no increases prior to COVID, and we knew that the COVID effect was going to happen, and it did. We got very fortunate this year is that we saw a 0.04% increase in the family plan for January 2025. The 2026, in talking with my colleagues, it's a conversation we continue to have. Hey, what are you budgeting? What are you thinking? What are we doing? And we were all kind of leaning in a 10 or 12% range for the 2026. However, a colleague recently sent us all an email saying, hey, I got a heads up. They're looking at possibly 14%. So right now we are budgeting that 14% increase for those 6 months out to protect us because we don't want to be caught with only 10% and it comes in at 14 and now we don't have the funds in the budget. So continuing to watch it as we continue through the budget process and we'll adjust accordingly as we receive information. And then other areas, just about 2.5 million of benefits is our payroll taxes, our unemployment costs, insurance for dental, vision, life insurance, workers' compensation, so all of those other things that we offer to our staff, again, relates to about $2.5 million. So now within the realm of buildings and grounds. Buildings and grounds takes over, it's all of our custodial staff, our maintenance staff, our grounds crew. It takes part of their supplies for their cleaning, for upkeep of the buildings. It includes our security needs that we have for uniforms, security camera replacements. It also includes all of our utilities, so our gas, electric. The annual inspections that we have to do for our buildings and equipment, our bleachers, our electric doors, all that needs to be inspected annually. And then any repairs. So we do budget annually for repairs throughout the building. Knowing that our buildings are older and aging, and we are trying our best to maintain them. So we do put in some contingency budgets for those things. But what we are seeing for next year is we are seeing a significant energy savings, which we did discuss a couple meetings ago, that due to the energy performance contract and the solar being plugged in on June 30th back by the high school, we're seeing about $130,000 in savings in electrical costs. So as a result, that line is going to see a decrease. Our maintenance budget, we are increasing some of these areas. So our roof maintenance, we had a thermal scan done of the roof up in the secondary building a couple months ago. And with that, they've given us some preventative maintenance work to do until we can do a capital bond to fix a lot of areas where we have moisture. So we did increase that budget to $35,000. Ceiling tile replacements, to do one classroom to replace ceiling tiles is about $15,000. So this year we just did Miss Wayne's classroom, and that was a safety issue. So we are looking to try to slowly replace all of those ceiling grids that are very old and Clayton Huey. Window shade replacements, those are a safety thing. During lockdowns, lockouts, we want to make sure everybody has functioning shades. And then just general painting work that we do throughout the buildings. Equipment upgrades, so in conversations with the Buildings and Grounds team, this is what's proposed. Whether or not all of this stays in the budget is to be seen as we continue to work through it. But the Clayton Huey flagpole, I don't know if you actually go take a good look at it. It's kind of nearing its end of life. We have had it painted quite a few times. I'm here 6 years now, and I want to say at least twice that I've been here, we've painted it. It's just really at a point we need to replace it. So it's about $5,000 to do that. We could use a new dump truck. Our trucks are older, and some are interesting to see how they're being held together. So we do try to buy one every year. So that's about $60,000. A new golf cart for our security and athletic staff. And then an additional plow for that dump truck as well would be about $6,000. So those things we buy off of bid, and they do sometimes tend to come in lower, which will give us some savings for next year if that's the case. But as I said, these are the proposals for them right now. Nothing is locked in stone until we actually adopt the budget.
Carrie, how often did you say that you purchased a dump truck?
We purchased a pickup truck 2 years ago, was the last. We've been trying to buy this dump truck for a couple of years. We put it in and then take it out. We're kind of hoping it sticks this year because the truck is not sticking. The truck is falling
The truck
apart.
is held together by
It's, yeah,
unique way. It's,
I have been under it and seen how it's held together. It's a long part.
So,
Yeah.
Carrie, for the maintenance budget, is that in addition to what we have already for this year, like added to what we budgeted for this
Yes.
year? Okay,
Yes.
so the actual like amount for painting is going to be more than.
We're increasing it another 5,000. Yeah, we're increasing what we already have in there for these items, correct?
That's what I thought you said.
Yeah.
Thank you.
the golf cart is for security, right? You said?
It's security, athletics, yeah, but mostly security. is
So when we
what
start to look at it, maybe we can get something that's enclosed that has a cloud attachment onto it so that it can be used for multiple purposes. You can look at like John Deere one, they
Well,
can use
you're
the
now
cloud as
having
well.
$40,000.
I would say do some, you know, you might look at 20, but you're gonna get a free use facility out of it.
Mhm.
And also then protect the guys in security with some coverage. So whether we do it or no, but there should be some type of enclosure, so if it is raining.
I can answer that, take a look. Yep. With regards to major repairs, so we have $40,000 in there for the long jump area of the high school track. If you recall, back during when we were trying to pass the bonds, this was in there for track replacement in the long jump area. It is slowly continuing to deteriorate, so we had the professionals come out and take a look at it. And while the whole track could use a complete refinishing and a redo, this is really the area of highest concern right now, and it is in the inner part of the field, so it doesn't really disturb the rest of the track. So it's $40,000 is the quote we received for that, so we would be looking to do that in the summer months so that it's ready for use for fall track season.
I'm not familiar with the consistency of what a high school track long jump is made of, so excuse my ignorance on that. But how come that has to be fully replaced, but then with the tennis court, we just patch it up? So I'm just like, can that be also?
So it's the
patched up?
same company that did both, so the
Estimated?
same company did the tennis courts, and now this is beyond patching repair work. It's like a rubbery material that has to be completely
It
removed.
has to be completed.
Yeah.
That's what I was asking.
Yep.
Do we know the cost to do the track and the long jump?
I do have that, yes, they did, when they came, I had asked them to please just give me the full quote, I do have that, I can share that out.
Okay, yes, if it's right here, we can't afford it and add it.
You're in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, yes, it is, that's why, I would have loved to have put it in, but you're talking, that is bond work, unfortunately, yeah.
I think what gets me confused is I remember when we spoke about doing some bathrooms at the BOE.
Yeah, we got
That was it, okay,
Yes,
that's I don't know if it was considered.
No, so this is just in the general fund budget of buildings and grounds, the lower cost item, ticket items that we're trying to achieve next year.
Yeah, if you do have any questions, if you could just sign in, because we are taking questions for this agenda at the appropriate time.
Yes.
So if, like I said, if you do have questions, just put your name in and we're definitely going.
So with regards to the bathrooms, we'll continue to do the capital outlay projects for the $100,000. We spend $100,000 in the following year, we get aid, our current aid ratio, which has been between 73 and 78% each year, it does change. So we would get $78,000 back in the following year at aid, so essentially it starts to pay for itself. For next year, we are proposing to do the girls' bathroom in Clayton Huey down in the fourth grade, is that, the downstairs, is that fourth grade? Oh, I have it up there. The fourth grade wing. And in addition, at this time, we've put into the budget an additional $200,000 to transfer to capital to do additional bathrooms. $100,000 unfortunately only gets us one bathroom. And this has been a conversation that we were having with the legislators yesterday about increasing capital outlay. It's been a conversation on the table for a couple of years now. And with the escalation of costs and projects and prevailing wage, it's very expensive to get a lot done with only $100,000. So we are asking in our advocacy to raise that to $250,000. And if that's the case, we can obviously get a lot more done and not just a bathroom, maybe do something else. But my plea to our Assemblyman Senate was, I have 30 bathrooms. In 30 years, I'll have all my bathrooms done and I'm gonna start all over again. So we really need to start looking at this. So we do have in the budget $300,000 in order to tackle 3 bathrooms. So we would be looking at the girls' bathroom in the 4th grade wing as well as the staff bathrooms that are down by the gym, which are pretty much original to the building. So I don't know if you've ever been down there, especially if you're with MYO, those bathrooms are usually used quite a bit during their days. So this is our proposal. Even though these are smaller bathrooms than the other ones we have done, because they are so old, all the unit vents have to be replaced. They are not ADA accessible to today's code, so the doors have to be widened. So there is true full construction. I worked with the architects last week, I think it was, to go over that. And I said, hey, we're much smaller bathrooms. Do you think I can get 2 done? And he said, absolutely not. They are such an old bathroom that it's just most likely not going to be feasible. So they are working on that information, working on the specs, so we can get some quotes to determine what we can do. But that is the proposal for now, for next year with regards to major capital work.
And these will be done in the summer?
The goal would be, it depends on when SED gets us approval. So we might have the approval of 1 earlier than the other 2, because the $100,000 project, they do expedite. But we would look to do the 3rd-party review with SED for the additional $200,000, because we could then get a permit much quicker than if we went through the regular SED route. So the other big project, as we mentioned last time, we do have a capital reserve in place that the voters approved a few years back. And we are looking to access that money in order to do the auditorium. So it's been a very big topic of conversation within the district. I just received the final quote. So last time we were talking about $1 million pulling from the capital reserve. I did get the final quote for the lighting, the sound, refacing the front of the stage. They would give us storage underneath that stage, painting the ceiling. Which came in a little bit higher than what I had thought it would be. Not my expert, but that's why we have people that give us these numbers. So with that, the 1.2 does give us about a $200,000 cushion for the just in case as we start doing that work. We are at about $1 million for the total project, but we do want to make sure we have some contingencies built in. So the use of this money, though, has got to be approved by the voters. So tonight the board has the proposal in the resolution for our public notice about the budget vote itself, and then there is also the resolution to ask the public to approve us to use the capital reserve for the purpose of auditorium renovation. There's no cost to taxpayers for us to use this money. It's money we've already saved. We've already put it to a savings account. It's put to the side, and we would get building aid back on it. So we would go through the 3rd-party review process. You do pay a fee for it, but it's well worth it. Some people are seeing projects return in 4 weeks and you have a permit. I've been talking to these vendors. If I can get a voter approval in May and get approval early August, can we start that work right away? And they're telling me they most likely can start squeezing us in to do it. It does different, I'll go to the next one so you can see what it is. So while we're saying it's about $1.2 million, the bond proposal was a lot higher, it was $3-4 million. But that was a complete gut job. What we were going to do in the bond was completely fix all the stage rigging, like completely gut that place and make it a whole brand new place. Can't do that, we don't have that money. So this is giving it a nice facelift, replacing all the seats. Once we pull out all the seats to replace, epoxy the flooring underneath it. While that's open, paint the ceiling, clean up the walls, refinish all the stage, all the wood on the stage, replace the carpeting, adding some additional lighting so that we can see our choral performances, because right now there's a lot of shadows the way the lighting is, so we would add some pit lighting. And then the fee for the 3rd-party review, the architect fees, and like I said, some contingencies that are in there for those just in case as we go through the project. So this is the information that I have now, and that's why we're going to ask the voters in May to please approve a $1.2 million pull from the reserve in order to do these projects.
Carrie?
Yes.
You know I was going to stop. So I think it's important because we're going to try to get the word out to the community as the year goes on, but it's important to try to communicate every chance we get. So the community's been fairly consistent with these bigger bond level projects that they don't approve the suggestions we put and the way we're funding it. So I think it's really critical that we be clear on this, how it's going to affect the taxes, right? So I know you've been instrumental in getting us to this point where we can say this, and I've been waiting probably 10 years to follow other districts and say these words. But what will be the effect on school taxes if this is approved by the voters?
Zero.
Wait, say it louder. So everybody can hear you.
There is no tax impact in doing this project because we've already put the money into the reserve.
And our reserve is still healthy at 2.4, 2.5 this year, so we still end up with 1.2 to 1.3.
We're not depleting the reserve by this one project.
To address other projects in the event that we need to in the future.
So we're still in a good place in the reserve.
Right, and it's a project that is needed. I mean, I think it speaks for itself. As we continue to go through, we will continue to add those pictures of the auditorium and the seats, really.
And as we continue to go through, we will be working with our communication firm to get out information, accurate information to the community in terms of the fact that it's not going to cause an increase to the taxes, but that we are using our capital reserves. We will explain the capital reserves, how we can utilize it. We will include an informative video that we are working with now. We will also compare the cost analysis of the original bond proposal, which was created back in 2023 versus now. The fact that, as Ms. Lockland correctly indicated, that was a complete retro. We're not asking for that. We're asking for a renovation of the auditorium, which comes in at a much lower cost.
Well, the good thing is that within this proposal, it's actually effectively doing what the community has asked, is to save the money, do the projects, move on.
Yeah,
So-
especially the seats.
And it's $0 at this point. So some people will say, well, no, it didn't cost us $0. No, we know, but it was saved over the course of time in order to get to this point so that we can sit in chairs that aren't.
And the reserve is used specifically for this. So we can't use the funding for something outside of a capital project.
And
So we would
it's
stress it. And it's 78%
Unattainable.
back reimbursement over the course of 15 years.
Which then that money can come back into the general fund and eventually help us with other meeting maintenance.
Yes.
So, nice job, man.
So I just want to reiterate what you were saying. This is not a bond that we're asking for. It is not going to raise anybody's taxes. It's money that we already have, but we need voter approval in order
To
to
allow
use
us to touch our savings.
that, yes, okay. And we are still in a good position afterwards using this money.
Yeah, and we anticipate putting money into that reserve at the end of this year.
Okay.
From savings realized through the budgetary process.
Thank you.
So our next workshop is on March 26th, and at that point, we will pretty much have a solid budget complete, because April 1st is when the state budget is adopted, assuming it's an on-time budget. But at that point, our administrative team will present their building level plans, we'll go through athletics, enrollment projections, and staffing, and anything else that might have changed from now until then. And then April 23rd is our adoption of the budget, and just a programming note, our budget hearing has been moved up a week. We originally had it for May 14th. We were informed it has to actually be at least 7 days prior to the vote, so we were 1 day shy. So we moved it up 1 week to May 7th for the budget hearing. And all the information is up on the website, on the business office page. You'll find all these presentations and any other information.
And that is also when the community will vote for the capital reserve project.
At the budget vote.
At the budget.
Somebody,
Yeah.
May
Okay.
any other questions for the board?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's exciting.
Alright, questions and comments regarding tonight's agenda only? This is the opportunity for persons who wish to speak or who have written letters to the board regarding topics that are included on this agenda. Speakers are asked to sign in prior to approaching the board, indicate your topic comment, keep comments brief, and speak for no longer than 3 minutes. Members of the public will have the opportunity to speak about any topic at the end of the meeting. Does anybody have anything they would like to discuss?
The district calendar for next year, I noticed that the conference day is in late December. I think it's like 3 or 4 days before Christmas. I was just curious, I mean, it's like, I think like 3 or 4 weeks before the quarter's over. At that time, like, it's going to be very difficult. If parents are at, a meeting where they find out that their children needs to, improve their grades, they're not really going to have time to improve their grades at that point. Especially like if they're doing midterms and something like that in high school.
Sure, so I can address that. So originally, we had it scheduled this year for the first week of December. That's where we had it scheduled this year. Unfortunately, what we were looking at is that it doesn't coincide with the elementary report card, because the elementary works at a trimester schedule versus a quarterly schedule, which is what is followed at the middle of high school. So to have a better informed conversation, we felt that it was better to have the parent-teacher conference after the parents receive the report card, which next year will be scheduled for December 12th, and the parent-teacher conference will be scheduled for December 19th. That was the logic behind the scheduling of the parent-teacher conference on that Friday, December 19th.
I'm just afraid about the high school, that'll be second quarter.
That will be, they will be into the second quarter,
Yeah.
that is correct.
Yeah.
But like I said, this year, it was only a 2-week difference because we didn't have it that first week in December.
Yeah, that's.
So it's hard to kind of coincide because we do have we have the secondary at a quarterly schedule and then the elementary at a trimester. We do encourage all of our staff members, teachers, and professional staff to maintain constant communication with parents. So we're hoping that is something that is going to be implemented and continue to be implemented with progress reports at the high school level and ultimately at the elementary level. We are looking at the redesign of our report cards at the elementary level. So we're hoping, like I said, this time, I think no time is a perfect time in terms of looking at the elementary versus the secondary. But I think getting that information to our parents at the elementary level is really, really paramount. So that's what we're looking at, and that was the rationale for the change, the day change.
I didn't know if there was a way that maybe the elementary could go one day, high school different day, I don't know, but.
Yeah, I kind of feel similar to you, and as somebody that's a high school student, but I'm wondering, I know sometimes parents don't always know that they can reach out to teachers and your
Yeah, I'm also a high school teacher.
Yeah, and your relationship with your child's teachers, I feel like at the high school level, you don't see them as often, so maybe it's on us to make sure that we help communicate to the public that this is a two-way communication, and teachers should be reaching out and parents should feel comfortable reaching out too, because I think where you have more communication at the elementary level with your teacher versus the older grades, so it could be problematic, and I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, like as far as being a middle school teacher, I always like the kids are usually doing great the first quarter, and then there is a dip second quarter. So to have the conferences then, we don't have hours, 9 hours are much earlier, but you don't really know the kids as well because you've only been with them for a few weeks and then we have conferences. So having it a little bit later, you have a true reflection of the student and their academic performance, and if they are declining, then that's a good opportunity for the teacher to be able to have a conversation with the parents when you really need it, instead of earlier on, that, they're doing well, but the content is much simpler, there's always, from what I've always seen, there's usually like a little dip there at second quarter, and then once you have those conversations with parents, they start to improve. So hopefully at that point, second quarter, you won't have to get to the end of second quarter and realize that they're struggling or things like that. So it could be beneficial to have it at that time.
And with the progress reports, that's
Yeah, you
helpful,
should,
not
yeah.
a sheet, yeah, so,
You should have a good understanding of how
Yeah.
the child is doing in every class with the progress.
yeah.
But we can consider some of your recommendations.
Okay, so anybody else have anything?
Consent agenda approval. Be it resolved, a motion to approve consent agenda items 7A through 12A, which includes 1 item 9I. Do you have a motion?
Motion.
Second. All in favor? Discussion? All in favor?
Yes.
General public comment? a 3-minute time limit per participant. Members of the public who desire to address or question the board on any topic related to board work are welcome to do so at this time. Speakers are requested to limit their remarks to not more than 3 minutes, to appoint a spokesperson if the concern is a group concern, and to supplement verbal presentations with written reports if necessary or desired. Does anybody have anything they would like to say?
I just have a question. So with the snow and everything getting kind of slushy, my kids go to the EDV, outside park in the Brookfield parking lot, and we take like a dirt pathway, and they seem to shovel like on grass. Is there any way we could have like loose stone put or something so that the pathway isn't literally stopping wet mud? It seems like I think faculty takes that pathway.
You mean the pathway,
Like, with go, yeah, I think a lot of people take.
We might be able to put gravel there or something, I can talk to our ground.
I know, it's just, I feel like everyone, or a lot of staff members and the parents take that pathway instead of, I parked today on, Montauk Highway, so I didn't have to walk through the mud. Just, I know,
we
money is
could
tight,
definitely,
but,
that might be
it seems
something.
like everyone uses it, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? All right, informational items. The next Board of Education meeting is on March 12th, 2025, with executive session at 6 p.m. and then action meetings approximately 7 p.m. Location to be announced, but it's scheduled for the high school library. Also, we have our Community Connections Committee meeting on Tuesday, February 25th at 6 p.m. here in the district office. People are encouraged to attend this meeting and have conversations with some of our board members and other committee members.
It's not too late to join committees, period.
Yes. And you can just show up for the committees, you don't have to, you don't have to sign up at all. You can just, if you look on the calendar, find out what the committee meetings are, and then just attend those if you're interested. Motion to adjourn the meeting,
Motion.
Second.
all in favor?
Yes.